Hi, welcome to our first podcast. This is Rivers of Grue. I'm Crimson Quill.
Bleeding Lotus.
And we're going to tell you a little bit about what Rivers of Grue is about, how it started, and where it's going. So Rivers of Grue, how did it start? Where did it come from? Like all ideas, it come from a seed. One little seed, but do you know what? There's a big long story attached to it. I've been through, I've been a hell and back the last couple of years. But do you know what? Over those couple of years, it's given me a new focus. A new focus. I know where my strengths are now. I've spent most of my time focusing on my weaknesses, so I just decided, you know, at no point in my life have I really committed to anything. And my passion, ever since I started watching films with my dad, has been horror. Love horror. Everything horror. What about you?
Yeah, same as really. I think that's when we first met, it was something we found we had in common, really, wasn't it?
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Movies initially, and then a love for horror, I think.
Yeah.
I think we were both brought up on it from a pretty young age.
Yeah.
And I think it, you know, much like music or anything else in life, it can mould your taste, really. I think we both have, you know, opinions and a love for cinema as it is, but deep down, just a couple of grueheads.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been a gruehead since... Wow, my dad introduced me to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that probably was a bit of a shock from my mum. Because she weren't prepared for that. Actually, do you know what? The first film I ever rented was Extro. And a full-grown man gets born out of a full woman at the beginning. My mum was standing there. I've said this in one of my appraisals, actually, but my mum was standing there doing the ironing, and she just looked white as a sheet. Oh, son.
How old were you?
I was 10. My 10th birthday. Not that I'm...
That's commonly known as fucked up.
yeah, that is a bit fucked up, you know. Obviously, you know, kids don't watch horror till you're 18. What am I talking about? You're going to watch horror.
Get out there and get the DVD immediately.
Absolutely. Anyone that we recommend.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just,
anything we recommend.
Yeah, because
the one seal of approval.
Seal of approval. The one thing that we're going to always do is give unbiased opinions. It's going to be from the soul.
Absolutely. I think that's the difference. You know, we're not, you know, reinventing the wheel. We're not doing anything necessarily groundbreaking, but I think that you will find there's a lot of passion. It will be unbiased. You know, you will find some appraisals where 10 out of 10 can't fault it. We've not been bunged a benners or anything. We're just literally telling you how we feel and our opinions of something.
Yeah. And do you know what? With reviews, I always find this. That people seem reluctant to give a 10 out of 10. People seem reluctant to talk about perfect. But perfect is, for its time and place, could it have been any better? And there's so many films that come out that reach that pinnacle. In the horror industry, I could name 100 straight off the bat. It's thriving.
I think the thing is, you can watch any movie and you can pick holes in the plot. You can pick holes in the acting. You can pick, you know, I've sat and watched Morgan Freeman and critiqued his performance. Not because there's anything wrong with it, because you can do that for anything. But if you sit back and enjoy it for what it is, a piece of cinema, if you enjoy something for what it is, then there are many perfect movies out there.
Yeah.
You know, you can. How many people go on about Inception and the logic behind it? But what a beautiful movie. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah. No one. You're just completely transfixed from the moment it starts.
Amazing performances, amazing cast, scripts, music, every element of it is like a roller coaster. You know? And how many movies are like that? You know, there are many. Yeah,
well, one of the other things that really gets my goat is, like you're saying about films being comfortable in their own skin, B movies. And a film will just get chastised because because it is a little bit hammy. The acting's not up to scratch. But do you know what? I think if you're going to be a horror fan, you've got to lower that expectation to start with.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not going to be expecting to see Kate Blanchett, you know, running around in a frilly nightgown.
Well, look at The Wolfman, the recent one. Academy Award winning director Benicio del Toro, Academy Award winning actor Anthony Hopkins. Sorry, they're both Academy Award winning actors. Who? Emily Blunt. Yeah. Fucking stinker. Do you know what I mean? Who directed it? I can't even think who directed it. But it was a stellar. It had all the money in the world thrown at it, all of the talent in the world, and it was fucking disgusting.
None of it stuck, did it?
It was a horrible movie, and you know you can the expectation of that movie would have been so high because of the caliber of the performers, and the people behind the scenes. Yeah, what a load of shit.
Yeah, it just falls flat.
What a load of shit. You know,
that's it. It's not about money, is it?
It isn't. It's not about, and it's like you say. Sometimes it's about being true to itself, isn't it? You know, it's sometimes you get the movies that come out and say it's our homage to the B movie, which is all well and good, and if it's done well, brilliant. But it's the movie that says, no, we are a B movie. This is what we are. We're not a tribute to something. You know, we're trashy, and we're proud of it.
Yeah, our hearts on our sleeve as we set out. Yeah,
that's got to be the way sometimes. You know, you've got to. I think that's what we find our commonality is that we will take it for what it is, you know, whether it's a purely gruesome horror, you know, torture porn. Not that we like to use that word, but that phrase, sorry, but it exists. We'll use it. Everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
But you know, whatever the genre, whatever the combination of genres, you have to take it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I've had to start looking at is films a little bit more on the extreme scale, and I wasn't that battle hardened actually because I think you're the same. I'm a wimp. I'm a wimp.
More so as I've gotten older.
Yeah, I'm a wimp. I haven't got a particularly strong stomach, but that just makes you a better horror fan, surely. Just gets that adrenaline going.
I think so. But I think we had a conversation the other night. I think that there are taboos and there are things that I won't watch and can't deal with. I'm not necessarily saying you can't. I'm not necessarily saying other people can't. But we spoke about the, I think it's a Japanese film, Frozen, isn't it? I think we discussed that. And about that was too much. I watched 25 minutes of it and turned it off. It was too strong for my taste. And I'm the same with Human Centipede. I will never watch that movie. I will never watch that movie. Unless someone turns me into Human Centipede and forces me to watch it, I'm never going to see... I don't want to see other people eating other people's shit, you know?
Well, I've got a sewing set in my car, so... Could get you like mouth to anus. Yeah.
Let's go and see if we can find some.
Let's build a millipede.
Really go all out.
Go all out for limbs.
Fucking get it out there. Didn't he? I heard that he didn't he first do it with Rottweilers. Perhaps we could do a human dog hybrid.
Yeah,
we some fucked up creation.
Like kind of body snatchers kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with human face.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be beautiful. Beautiful. See, we're just gonna transgress and
now we have we've got a little bit warped now, haven't we? Really, because we've gone beyond movies to our personal experiments. Perhaps we'll save that for a
bit later.
Privacy.
Yeah,
of our own conversations.
Things are always going to end up warped, though, man. You know that.
But yeah, you know, being battle hardened, there are levels everyone has. There are levels that we have, but I think that it aids in our appraisals because there's often movies have a common touch to them, they have a common feel to them that we appreciate. And I think that helps us to understand them better, really, doesn't it? You understand the history behind it, you know, you understand where you're going, don't you? You understand, again, digressing, not so much a horror movie, but we discussed The Dark Knight Rises. Now, people didn't understand why it was set in the daylight when... You know, you've got this partisan terrorist who doesn't give a shit that anyone sees him. That's why it's set in daylight. You know,
it's better for it.
And people who don't understand the history, they don't understand the purpose of the character, don't understand that and don't appreciate the film. I think that's something we we try and do, don't we? Really?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's subjective. Of every single person that watches a film is going to take something different from it. They're going to want something different from it. But I think the key to really, embracing horror the way that you should is you need to be adaptable. You need to be able to work out in the first 15 seconds of the first credits at the beginning of the film whether you need the bar to be high or low, and you need to be able to adjust it on the go as well. And to be honest, I don't really read reviews very much at all. And we were just talking earlier, weren't we, about cherry picking.
Absolutely.
I won't read anything negative. I'm quite happy to make my own judgment, but I'm more focused on what's good about it, what's positive about it, and that probably comes across in my reviewing style.
I think it's important, isn't it, though?
Yeah, definitely, because it is subjective. You're not going to please everyone, but at the same time, anyone that's reading that review is probably going to have an interest in that film to start with. So the least you can do is give it the respect it deserves.
Absolutely. And it's, we all go into things with preconceptions, and we all go into things having some background knowledge, whether it's reading a review or just a press release. But, as you say, it's about giving it the respect it deserves. It's sometimes you'll appreciate the craft more than another individual will. There might be something about the film that you'd appreciate, and that's what we try and remember when we watch the movies and when we appraise them. It's we know extra is never going to appeal to the Sense and Sensibility crowd. It's not. It's a hard fucking sell, but
it is.
The other side of it is you appreciate who its target audience is and what it is and who it's for. You can appreciate it on an individual basis for its own merits.
Yeah, and it is. It's one of those films as well, Extra, that could only have been made in the early 80s, and there's no place for it now. There was no place for it 5 years later. It needed to be there, and it come out. It's completely messed up from beginning to end. It's incoherent. It's all over the place. But it's one of the most entertaining horror films I think I've ever watched.
I think that sort of the antithesis almost is not entirely,
I
but
like that word, man. Say it again.
Antithesis. I try and throw it in 3 or 4 times a podcast. I think that talking of the early 80s and films that were there, though, I mean, it was something we wanted to talk about, discuss. But obviously, early 80s, we had one of the greatest horror films ever made, John Carpenter's The Thing. Go on. That's I just want you to speak after that reaction. I just want you to elaborate on that.
First of all, I need to exhale. I need to be ready for this.
Can we just say very quickly that obviously John Carpenter until the 90s was a fucking legend, and probably did not produce a bad movie until Memoirs of the Invisible Man, perhaps. Other people would debate it, maybe with.
Yeah, do you know what? Some Carpenter fans are a big fan of that film,
Yeah.
But I've never watched it.
I hate it. But then in 1991, I think that wasn't it? In 93, he made In the Mouth of Madness, which I love. And people hate that film. In fact, a lot of Carpenter fans hate that film.
Yeah.
But I think it's great.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm not one of them. It's not my favourite Carpenter film.
A lot of people don't like it, and I know that. And a lot of people. But then, people don't like Prince of Darkness. But that's one of the films that still scares the life out of me.
Yeah, Prince of Darkness. I think Prince of Darkness was on the cusp. He was just starting. I think he's always had a very uneasy relationship with the studios, and more so in the 90s. And I think a lot of his work got messed with, and really just stripped away from what he wanted it to be. So he got quite disillusioned, didn't he, Carpenter?
He did. I think, we've spoken about it before, but it seemed that in the 90s, into films like Vampires and Ghosts of Mars, it seemed almost like he'd lost that scope he once had. His movies, even The Thing, was such an insular movie. It was about the desperation, it was about the abandonment, it was about being somewhere where they couldn't get away from, confined areas, confined spaces. Yet it felt so huge. It wasn't like Ghost of Mars where a big fucking planet and town felt like I was recording on a backlot, you know, which is what that movie seems like. It just seems like you can look at any scene of that movie and you feel like you're on a sound stage.
Yeah.
You don't get that with The Thing. You don't get that with Big Trouble in Little China. Don't get that with Prince of Darkness. I mean, Prince of Darkness, the beauty of that film was that, again, it was supposed to be a confined area. It was supposed to be, you know, I think I said to you before, it's almost like Assault on Precinct 13, but in reverse, really, isn't it? You know, it's not about the baddie trying to get in. It's about him trying to get out. Yet it still felt like such a huge movie. And The Thing, I think, was so indicative of that. Really, it was the perfect example of how to make almost like a prison film, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah. You know? It was. How did you feel about the male casting? Because I always said one of the things that I instantly didn't like about the news about a prequel coming out was that it cast 2 females, and that's not me being chauvinistic, but one of the things that made the original so great for me was that there was nothing to take you away from just a group of men in a bad situation, all friends, but you know, where do their allegiances lie once start things going wrong? Once I
start things going wrong. Yeah, I know what you mean.
See, that's it. I'm getting the twitch. I get the thing twitched.
Start
now.
things going wrong.
I'm going to go like Windows. That was Palmer. What am I talking about, Windows?
I think my main issue was it was a Hollywood movie, and my issue was Hollywood. The whole purpose of the original was, like you said, it was this male cast, and you knew that you could have had gay characters in that film, but you knew that there was never going to be a romantic scene because it was that desperation. And unfortunately, Hollywood is so predictable and in fact sexist in itself. In that oftentimes when it casts a woman in a lead role, is so that they can throw in a sex scene, so they can throw in a scene of romance. And I found with the prequel that it didn't do that. No. But what it did so badly was it fell back on the Ellen Ripley archetype. It didn't try anything new. That basically wanted to be an aliens movie. That's what it wanted to be. It wanted to be, you know, aliens all combined. Yeah. And that's where it fell flat. And because it didn't understand the concept of the original, was that it didn't need that one big hero or heroine. It didn't need that one big character that was going to fight them all. In fact, McCready, you know, Kurt Russell's character, he looks fucking confused most of the film. He looks like he just doesn't know what to do, does he? You know what I mean? No. That's the beauty of that performance. Yeah. He doesn't come across as Superman, I'll save the day. He's going along moment by moment. There are other characters in that film who seem like they got it together a little bit more, really.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. At one point, you're doubting him yourself, aren't you? So.
You do. You doubt who his allegiance is to, and you doubt whether he is the creature. You doubt whether he's actually going to be able to make it out without fucking running through the snow, just finishing it right there. You know, that's the beauty of that film. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Oh, there's many beauties to that film, man. The makeup effects. Have you watched it recently?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago last time I watched it. It's just knocked my socks off.
Yeah, do you know what? Apart from the end, where obviously the Thing is shown in this sort of full tentacle glory, up to that point, it still looks good. Still looks good.
And part of that for me, I think, as well, is that he's not that I'm saying that the effects probably are subpar compared to the rest of it, but there was always going to be an anticlimax with that reveal, wasn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, fucking Satan would have had to come out the floorboards just to make that feel like a surprise, because that film just was one surprise after the other, wasn't it? Really?
Oh, it was.
Fucking head running around on legs.
Oh man, do you know what? I'd love to have been sitting there in a cinema seat the first time that
came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the blood test scene. I know it's the most obvious one to make note of when you're talking about the Thing, but truly now, I still don't think there's many scenes that I can think of in modern cinema that have been quite as, I don't know, pressure cooker.
Oh,
It's just completely
it's amazing.
annihilates you.
You know, it's the dialogue, the performances, as you say before, the makeup and the special effects, the direction. I mean, it's horror. It is hard being a guy sort of, you know, in your early, mid or late 30s, growing up on those films, because you really appreciate John Carpenter for what he was and what he could do. And it is hard because it's, even watching The Ward recently, I wasn't particularly enamoured with that film. And in many ways, it felt like a bigger movie. In many ways, it felt like a better directed movie. But it still upsets me to an extent that a lot of people are going to miss out on Carpenter when he was in his heyday.
Yeah.
Because he was phenomenal. He was on form for years, you know. And the thing kind of... What I love about the thing as well was it wasn't the culmination of his skills. Yeah, a lot of people will tell you it's the best horror movie you make. A lot of people tell you it's the best horror movie that was ever made. But, you know, personal preference, perhaps Big Trouble in Little China.
You love putting Big Trouble in.
It's my favourite film by him, you know. It's, to me, it's a perfect movie. That's a 10 out of 10 movie. I can't fault that film. It's like digression. But,
we like that. You digress.
I digress all day long. But the beauty of that film is how far its tongue is in its cheek. I mean, that was self-referential before it became that it worked, you know. John Carpenter did it with that movie before people were poking fun at themselves. I mean, again, another beautiful performance by Kurt Russell as the anti-hero, really, but also a bit of a wuss, really. I mean, there's a key scene in it where one of the guys says to him, I think Eddie says to him, you know, have you never plugged somebody before? And what I love about that is, one, it implies that all the rest of them are a bunch of fucking ruthless killers, right? Going around killing people. You're rooting for a bunch of people who will go around saying, you never plugged anyone before. Well, the second part, no, he hasn't. He hasn't. He's a truck driver who kind of, whose charm gets him through most of the situations, but he's not this sort of archetypal burly hero. You know, he looks like it, but deep down, he's sort of winging it every step of the way.
He's winging it. Yeah, and there's nothing better, is there?
And that's the thing with it, it's poking fun at himself. You know, I think there's a part in it where Wang Chi says to him, it's something along the lines of, you know, we can do this, Jack. And he sort of says something, gee, Egg, you know. So we'll just take on the 7-foot demon that is David Lopan, you know. And he basically rallies off all the things that they can't do because they're just, you know, a couple of normal guys. And it's the realisation that he's not Batman that makes it beautiful for me, you know. It's just...
It's the perfect counterbalance to Snake Plissken, isn't it?
Well, you know... Shit, hell, fucking hell.
Guys,
I can't believe I didn't even think about that.
Have we not spoke about Snake Plissken?
Oh my goodness.
With
Carpenter and the Thing,
Yeah. Tom Atkins ain't popped up either yet, and that's another... But actually, do you know what? There's a lot of collaborators though, isn't there? Like Dean Cundy, the cinematographer for so many of Carpenter's films.
Deborah Hill, wife and screenwriter, you know.
Yeah. Mustafa Akkad.
Yeah, it's just... I mean, I think a lot of it was down to that as well. He found... I mean, if you look at a lot of the later Carpenter films, I think the different production team, a different script writing team, you know, he did want to come away from studio films, but I don't know if it was to the detriment of his output, really. You know, it's a shame when you're on such a winning formula with a bunch of people that you're not able to maintain that for whatever reason, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. But I mean, you know, you go back. Obviously, Dark Star and films like that were great, but you know, you're talking. Many people consider it as the zenith, perhaps Halloween. Not, in my opinion, not necessarily his best movie, but I can understand that it's perhaps the most seminal of his movies. And from then on, like you say, a lot of key collaborators worked with him on a lot of movies from that point. Yeah. And, you know, and gave you some outstanding movies along the way.
Oh, yeah, I mean, through the 80s, with The Fog, it's a beautiful little film.
Amazing. And there's Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins as well.
Perfect segue into bringing him into it.
I think he's on a segue now, actually. Yeah. Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins, I think as a kid, my dad had a tash like Tom Atkins, so instantly I looked at him and I thought, yeah, he's like my dad. My dad was pretty, you know, he had like a
Tom Atkins-esque.
Yeah, he was. No. Tom Atkins was my dad.
Your dad-esque.
Yeah, it was that way round. But yeah, I mean, slipping a little bit away from Carpenter, Halloween 3, Night of the Creeps.
Oh, brilliant films, both of them.
And The Fog. He didn't really do much outside of Carpenter. Lethal Weapon, he popped up shortly.
Drive Angry, briefly.
Was he in Drive Angry?
Only briefly.
Oh, right.
Very briefly.
And they dusted him off recently.
Literally, it looked like he was just getting rid of the last remnants as he was filming. Honestly, he very, very craggy. Is perhaps the best word for him at that point. I mean, well, craggy was probably the best word for him throughout his career.
Oh, he always
fucking decrepit at that point.
Yeah. He always had those craggy looks, man. But women, he could get any woman he wanted.
Well, especially
in bed.
when he sucks that stomach, you know. I'll never forget that scene in Halloween 3 where he gets up and he kind of from the back he looks like quite a burly, muscular guy. And he flips to the side, and you can see he's sucking in with all his might. He's not going to let those extra 20 pounds hang over that belt, you know.
Yeah.
And that was the beauty. But then that was the beauty of a lot of actors at that time, wasn't it? It was they weren't necessarily in the best shape, just at the right angle. I mean, this is a real digression, but Omega Man with Charlton Heston, and there's this beautiful bit where he's standing in front of like a big screen TV, and it's just it's almost like a mirror image of him, and you've got him standing there, and he's got his gut, he's breathing in, and he's got his shoulders popped out, Grant Mitchell style, you know. But he's the image of him, you can see he's a slightly older, flabbier sort of guy. The screen picture of him, I don't know what they did. It must have been sort of like prehistoric computer generated effects, but he's got these sort of muscular pecs, and it's really weird. He's sort of like, I think they've done something with the mirrors or something with the camera, but basically it's two different people just looking at each other.
Maybe Tom Atkins, maybe they've done some sort of got him in as a body double or something.
Just puffed himself up. But I mean, funny thing with Tom Atkins, the one time I can think of when he didn't have the tash was the dad in Creepshow, where he was a total arse.
Yeah.
And he was never really, I mean, he played a lot of anti-heroes again, much like Kurt Russell, but he was always likeable.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in Creepshow, he went totally against type, played an arsehole, and didn't have a tash.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Keep the tash.
Keep the tash.
Keep the tash, Tom.
Keep the tash.
Maybe he lost the tash in later years, that's why things went so quiet for him.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know what happened to him. I really don't, apart from Drive Angry. Yeah. And like I say, they wheeled him out just to raise a star power a little bit, you know, for the genre geeks. And
not quite as bad as Richard Pryor popping up in Lost Highway, though, was it? Just give him a couple of lines that had nothing to do with anything.
No, he at least played a sheriff that was after someone. It was relevant, at least, to the film.
But Carpenter knew how to use his strengths, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
And it seems to be the case with Carpenter and a lot of actors. And of course, as well, he's pioneering use of the Steadicam. And those beautiful wide shots from so many of his films.
I think the beautiful thing about the thing is it the Arctic or the Antarctic? The Antarctic, isn't it?
I think it's the Antarctic.
The Antarctic. It's such a sort of desolate place. You know, the Antarctic has got the lowest recorded temperatures of all time.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's such a desolate, horrible place, hostile place, to actually convey that. It wasn't just the case that they were under attack. You felt even more sorry for them because they weren't stuck in the Bahamas. You know?
No.
Florida, you know, they were stuck in a place where you just, you know, you could go into that movie, know nothing about the Antarctic, or the Arctic, we're not entirely sure, and you know that they are in one of the most barren places on the planet. You know, somewhere where you stay out for a night and you're dead the next morning. There was no way they could just run out of that building
No, they wouldn't have
the
got
old
far.
Andy Ten Toes, you know.
They,
We'll get to New York eventually.
yeah, there would have been some hedge maze out in the middle, wouldn't there, for freeze up in.
Look like you yesterday after bearing that blitz, isn't it?
Oh,
Snow blitz.
oh, do you know what? Yeah, that was a pilgrimage. I felt like Scatman Crothers. For real, the whole journey was just one long. I was half expecting an axe in the middle of the chest.
The chest, was it? You looked like you'd had one.
Yeah. I felt a little bit like I'd been cross-sectioned.
But it's. I think that was the beauty of Carpenter at that stage, was that he could elicit feelings, from the backdrop, from where they were. It's hard to do that. A lot of directors can't do that. I mean, that's why, a lot of directors do rely on an overabundance of backdrops of different locations, because they're trying to spice it up a little bit. To be stuck in the most desolate places on the planet, in essentially one building, and then to set your film there, it takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of skill to pull it off, and he had it in abundance.
Yeah.
Not many directors do or have. But
Well, the fog's another good example, isn't it? Because San Antonio Bay is it can be further from the thing,
no.
but at the same time, it's just a foreboding place.
Well,
once the fog banks start to roll in,
being stuck at the top of a lighthouse is never going to do you any favours when something's coming up from the sea, is it?
Nah. That was, of everyone in that film, I thought Stevie's character, she had the hardest time. I would have quite happily battled all the creatures from the fog. I can't really call them creatures, can I? It's doing them injustice.
They were beyond people, I think, by that point, weren't they? So creatures is...
Yeah, we'll call them creatures.
Creatures do.
Yeah. Well, I would have happily taken all those creatures just to spend the night up there with her in the lighthouse. I would have just laid there and said, just talk to me, Stevie. Just talk to me.
I think I would have just said, fuck my son. I'm off.
I'm off, yeah. I'm out of here.
I mean, that was a bit, just talking about that film a little bit, that was... The key element with that was that there were opportunities where she could have got out. That's the beauty of that movie, is that she was in a real invidious situation, but she stayed through it. She chose to... I mean, she was a real heroine.
Oh, she was, yeah.
Because she fought for the town. She fought and thought of the town. She gave them the guide, really, where it was, where to be, where to go. And I think that without her, there would have been no survivors in that movie.
No. Well, technically they would, because they would have run out of people to kill, wouldn't they? There's only a certain amount. I'm just being a wanker.
Weren't they just killing off anyone, though?
Nah, was it 7? 7 must die, wasn't it? They had to kill a certain amount. Once they'd done that...
Oh, yeah, you're fucking right.
They'll roll back out into the sea again.
She should have left her son.
She should have. Well, look,
And the old lady.
Yeah, 3 sailors at the start, done. That's 3 gone. Dan O'Bannon, he doesn't last very long either. The old lady, that's 5. There's only 2 more people got to die. Kids?
I mean, there's arguments that he had his whole life ahead of him, but there's also he's not had a chance to appreciate it yet,
Nah.
Get rid of him before he starts to enjoy his life.
Yeah, well, why are kids in horror movies anyway?
Exactly.
Why are kids in horror movies, and why aren't there more fatalities of kids in horror movies?
Everyone loves a bit of that, don't they?
Yeah.
Everyone loves to see a child murdered on screen.
Oh, absolutely. The first time I saw Newt in Aliens, I thought, you fucking bitch.
Die. Just die.
Just run through them tunnels. Keep going.
Keep going, yeah. Run away from Ripley. She'll do you no good.
No, it'll all end up bad in the end.
Just die, please. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, my erudite colleague. For making me look like a right cunt on
It's my job. It's my job, man.
Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. But I think going on with that, really, that it was the characters are so strong. The writing for the characters is so strong. You know, you don't end up with these one-dimensional, boring characters, which you do in these later films.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to keep going back to it, but Ghost of Mars, it was almost like a genre convention for each character.
Yeah.
You know, it was the crap Ripley rip-off. You know, you had the Englishman, you had your black gentlemen who sort of like were all the most ghetto individuals on the planet. God forbid any of them had gone to Princeton. You know, it was offensive in some ways. You know, it kind of you had these archetypes that were offensive. It was. I think a lot of people said it about the Transformers movie, the second one, the two smaller robots, the language they used and how they were just this really negative sort of stereotype of black people. Carpenter was guilty of it, especially in that film. Stereotyping. I mean, he thought he was giving us a strong woman. She's just fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She's just fucking annoying.
Well, when you consider some of the strong women from Carpenter films,
oh, absolutely, you know. And strong women in movies in general. I think that the problem is they are all going to fall back on being compared to Ripley. You know, that character. I mean, the thing is if you look at, I mean, digressed again, but if you look at Alien, she was a strong character in Alien, but she wasn't necessarily anything more than fodder like the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
It just so happened she was the one that survived. You got to Aliens, Jesus, do you know what I mean? She was pumped up on steroids and I don't know what else. She was a beast of a character. And I don't know, have you ever seen the... I'm asking if you've ever seen Cool Show. In the full version of it, which I didn't see until I was about 28, where it actually reveals about her daughter and the fact that her daughter had died and she'd missed her daughter's life and things like that. And I couldn't believe the change that made. I mean, it made the Newt character a little bit more bearable. Yeah. Because you could understand why Ripley wanted to save her. You know, you understood why. It kind of like... Initially, it almost felt like this is an unnecessary character. As much as I always loved that movie, there were parts where you thought there are unnecessary characters here. With that revelation, you think who wouldn't do that in her shoes?
Yeah, absolutely.
She'd missed her daughter's whole life, and you know, and she wasn't going to let anyone else take away a child from her. Really, you know?
No. As you see in the scene where she ends up in the mother's lair. It's so funny you fired.
Excuse me.
Get some nice bassy feedback.
But just going back to the thing, I think really, I mean, I know that you have a real love for it, as do I. And I think that much like other films, much like Cronenberg's The Fly, where they took a source material, a film, a book, and they did try and do it justice. They did try and have relevance to it, but they made it so much more, much like The Shining. You know, they made it so much more, and that's what he did with that film. He made it so much more.
Yeah,
he really he changed it into something that was indispensable. He changed it into a movie that you had to see, really. Yeah.
And there's enough characterisation in it to really sort of really feel the impact when one of them goes down. Whereas in the prequel, there was just bodies flying everywhere, and there was just loads of Norwegian guys with beards, which is all well and good if you've spent a bit of time with those Norwegian guys with beards. But, you know, apart from one of them playing a guitar at the beginning and a few of them singing along. That's it. That's your lot.
I think the thing is that they were given so much material with that prequel from the actual original film. There was so much to take and right, where does it all start? And they decided to try and rehash it, but with a little bit of, you know, aliens thrown in there. It was confusing to me because I felt that they were given so much back history, so much of a backstory that they could have made an incredible film out of it. They didn't have to make it similar to the original film. It didn't have to be like that because it was. I mean, it was borderline you know, scene for scene in parts, wasn't it? You know, it was almost like
Oh yeah, I mean,
Gus Van Sant had got the reins. You know, and thought, why change anything?
well, the blood test scene is it had the dental scene, didn't it?
Yeah,
Which I quite liked actually. I thought that was one of the only logical ways that they could have gone with that and still have something that had that kind of intensity. It didn't, because you didn't care as much about the characters, but I thought that was a nice touch, and there was some good creature effects, but some shocking CGI in there. There's just a couple of bits of CGI that stuck out, and just wasn't necessary.
I just don't get how in this day and age. I mean, I sometimes I watch Sci-Fi's own movies, you know, and it always shocks me. I know they're cheap movies, I know they're made fast, but some of the CGI I just think, you know, I could do better than that. Right? I genuinely do. I just think that the you know, it can't take that much effort in this day and age to produce something that's reasonably good to look at, or be clever with it. You know, be clever, hide it, Dog Soldier style. You know, keep it hidden up a little bit. Just show the bits that are good.
Yeah,
show the bits. I mean, I watched The Barons recently, the Jersey Devil film with Stephen Moyer. What's the vampire program?
True Blood.
True Blood. And not a bad film by any. Obviously, you know, I think they shot it in 18 days. It's supposed to be 20 days, but they lost 2 days. Obviously, on a very limited budget. But in most of the time, with the creature, they were pretty clever with it. You know, you got lots of blurred images. You got lots of, but it was cleverly blurred. It was because the character had got a knock on their head, so they're seeing this through a slightly concussed state. They're seeing this creature.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm very unforgiving. In 2013, 2012, you know, the last 20 years since Jurassic Park, if you haven't got the money, be clever.
Yeah. You
don't have to have a big fuck off creature walking towards you if it's just going to look like Scorpion King 2. No, not Scorpion King, what was it? Mummy 2.
Mummy 2.
You know the Scorpion King at the end of it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just looks like PS2. Just looks like the PS. It didn't age well. It didn't terrible as it was. That came out as vinegar, mate. Straight off. It was shocking from the first time you saw it.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, not good.
And yet, look at the original thing. It still looks amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And then you look at directors like Roger Corman. Say directors, producers. He's everything he's put his hand to has made money. I think that's still the case in his whole career. No film he's made has ever lost money.
Amazing.
And he makes primarily trashy B movies, things like Galaxy of Terror and Forbidden World and stuff like that. It's all just trash, but it's great trash.
Not exactly.
It's great trash.
It knows what it wants to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It knows what it wants to be. It's not sidetracked by anything. Just tells its story. Job done.
And with the thing, looking at it, the pantheon of horror movies, what would you say is left? The legacy.
What of The Thing?
Of The Thing.
That's a tough one.
Is it?
That's a tough one because that's like asking me. I don't know.
Oh, brilliant! Good example.
No, I'm thinking of it. Yeah, come back to me on that.
Yeah.
The legacy of The Thing.
What? I mean.
Well, I mean the whole everything that's come after it has
been compared to it.
Yeah. I mean that in itself is a pretty big legacy to leave, isn't it? It's the ultimate monster movie.
I think so. I think considering it didn't make a lot of money on release.
No.
It wasn't well liked on release.
No, which shocks me.
I know. I can't quite understand. I don't get that because of. I think where I really struggle with it is the if it's something like Shawshank Redemption, which never made any money, no one went to watch it at the cinema, but it got really good reviews, and it's never really and when it's been reassessed, people will still say it's a brilliant movie. I don't get where the majority, which it was, of the critics can sit there and say this is crap, it doesn't make any movie, but then 10 years later go, actually, it's probably one of the best horror movies ever made. It's borderline genius. How do you go from slating it to calling it one of the best? Well, I mean, I keep saying one of the best horror movies ever made. In my opinion, one of the best movies ever made. You know, I don't get how that happens. That transgression from crap to genius.
To genius, yeah. And that's why it's so important for reappraisal, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So it's like a massive factor. He's being able to go back, look at a film in a different time entirely, and see its worth, because you know, clearly a lot of people have changed their minds. What's going on?
Sorry, go on, carry on. Yeah, clearly changed their minds.
Day of the Dead's a good example. Reading the forward on the American Region 1 DVD of that, there was a forward by a very well-known American critic, who I don't know the name of. I'm not American, so...
Why would you know a critic's name anyway?
Why? Ebert?
Apart from Ebert, then.
Apart from Ebert.
Fair enough. Put me in my place.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. It's the nerd in me.
Let's see if you can go with a hat trick and make me look a right twat.
Yeah. I'm just... well, actually... I think you'll find... But yeah, this critic had... he'd absolutely slated Day of the Dead 10 years previous, and he just said it was a nasty piece of worthless trash with loads of hateful characters.
I agree with all of that, apart from the worthless part.
Yeah, well, 10 years later he's writing the forward for the DVD, and he's saying it's for him probably the most relevant entry in the series. So it just shows.
I think, again, you know, it was one of those movies for me that I think Dawn of the Dead possibly pips it. I'll tell you for why. Literally because I live 5 minutes away from a shopping centre. Actually, and that is what... I would have them level peggings pretty much if it wasn't for the fact that I've always got that thought. I look out my window and say, what if it happened to me?
Yeah.
But if I take that away from it, you know, if I was living elsewhere, not so close to a shopping centre,
or near an underground facility.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. If I was a military man, you know, he'd probably have it for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but once again, it just shows, you know, some of the responses, especially in the 80s, actually, for a lot of classic films. A lot of Carpenter films got quite a hard time. The Fog got quite sort of middling reviews, and it's a great little ghost story.
Oh, amazing. Well, and it shows you how it can, you know, the remake shows you how it can be in the wrong hands, so it can be just an absolute travesty, which it was.
Shocking.
You know, it's. I mean, we you know, we had a few in the 2000s. You know, we had the Hitcher remake. I just don't understand why that needed to be remade. You know, it had some good ones. The Dawn of the Dead remake was great fun.
Yeah,
I really thought it was I mean, the fact that he's actually turned out some pretty good movies since then as well. But I thought it was great fun. But you know, the Hitcher was embarrassing, and the Fog was. I mean, why you watch it when you could have the original for $2.99?
I know.
Is that?
There's no reason, is there? No reason at all. Some films are just best left.
Exactly. There's no need to tinker with them or try and update them, because it's a lot of Carpenter movies. They don't need updating. They don't need moving on because they're very relevant. They're very social movies. You know, whether he's tackling religion, whatever he's tackling, you know, criminality, he is also always very socially aware, and that's why I don't think it needs updating, because it's never necessarily of the time, it's of the people. He always states the case of the people. He doesn't state this is the 1950s or this is the 1970s. It's all incidental, really. I mean, I think that's why a lot of his films, they do have these very insular settings. They do have these confined settings, you know, a prison, you know, or holding cells in a police station, you know, a place in the Antarctic, a research station, you know, somewhere like Vostok in the Antarctic. You've got Chinatown.
Yeah.
You know,
New York on shutdown.
Do you know a church?
Yeah.
None of these movies need update. Again, perhaps that's where we went wrong with setting a movie in the future on Mars. It kind of makes it a little bit less believable, doesn't it?
It does a little, yeah. Yeah, maybe that wasn't the wisest choice. But you said the other day about vampires, and that was a strong point about that's like the Wild West, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a massive. You got a lot of scope there to make a good.
I mean, vampires is perhaps. I mean, I think I said to you before. I always watch Ghosts of Mars when it's on. It's disgusting how much of my life I've wasted watching that turd. But,
yeah, me too, man.
But vampires is in many ways very much the same. It is a crap movie. The problem with vampires for me, and it's not going to sound like a problem, but it is the potential.
Yeah.
It had a great actor as its lead.
Oh yeah, what a waste of James Woods.
It had a good premise. I wouldn't say a great premise. It had a good premise. You know, I think that it was a road movie set in the West. It was a Western road movie. You know, they had essentially it was much like From Dusk Till Dawn. The first half of that was almost a road movie in itself, wasn't it? And I think that it had a good premise and a lot of potential, and that's what angers me most about it. It's not even the movie itself, which is a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, Ghosts of Mars, at least it's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
Vampires, it's just wasteful for someone like Carpenter to not take that opportunity. Just, you know, I think at that time we were probably starting to despair. Why? Why would you do this to us, John? Why?
I remember watching in the, I think it was in the 90s. It was one Channel 4. It was one of the Word replacement shows. I mean, they went for about 50 million of them. I can't even think of what it was, but there was some big fat comedian on, and they had John Carpenter on as a guest, and he asked him, and it was about the Mouth of Madness, bizarrely enough. But the question was, I've loved everything you've done, except. And he said, in the Mouth of Madness, and Carpenter sort of was pleasant, didn't really have a reply, but he said, oh, you know, it was something I had to go at. The guy walked off, and Carpenter said something along the lines, what a fucking jerk, what a comment to make. And I think that was the problem, is that he wasn't accepting where he was going wrong. Like I say, I disagree with the comment about in the Mouth of Madness, but a lot of people didn't. And I think perhaps if he was more aware of himself, he could have identified where he was going wrong, because it all went wrong. It
did, and actually, do you know what? It's gone wrong for a lot of the old school horror directors. Have been through periods like Carpenter. I mean, you know, you look at like Romero. You know, he's not been consistent right the way through.
No.
He's probably got a better CV than most, but
yeah. Definitely.
But still, you know, not everything that he's made has been up to the standards that you'd expect a Romero film to be. It's only Cronenberg that I can think of, actually, who's just... Oh, mind you, that guy had it all worked out when he was in a pram, didn't he? He knew what he was going to do.
Born with that voice, well, you know, what was going to go wrong, really?
Nothing was going to go wrong.
I mean, and the key thing is, like you say, is that because the opposite, conversely, of someone like, in my opinion, and I think you share this opinion, Wes Craven, where he had a couple of stellar films, but majority of his career is, you know, Hills of Eyes, and did he direct or produce that of both? I can't even think. But
yeah, he directed it.
It was a bit of a hokey movie, you know. It was, you know, I hate to say it, but I think that Wrong Turn did it better.
Yeah,
essentially the same sort of thing, you know. I don't know why they remade. I think that's probably why they remade it, because it was done better by another movie. But you know, I think I said to you the other day, Scream. I love Scream. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
And I do like A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. But can you really give me any other indispensable Wes Craven movies?
Not really. I think when I think of Wes Craven, I can give you a lot of decent movies.
And that's it. Know? Absolutely.
Lots of decent, but not much. If you ask me 10 horror films that I'd want to take to my casket, that there wouldn't be a Wes Craven film in sight. You know, and I appreciate what he's done. Deadly Blessing, it's a solid movie. Last House on the Left, made me want to have a bath straight afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. You feel very dirty, don't you?
Yeah, and some of the trash that he's knocked out in the sort of post-millennium has been shocking. So consistency is a real issue, isn't it? Tobe Hooper as well.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that, Tobe Hooper. You know, he's had Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But then
what else did he? Poltergeist, he didn't really make it, did he?
Poltergeist.
I mean, there's a lot of debate about who directed that movie, isn't there?
Yeah.
Really.
I think he had a lot of assistance there, didn't he?
Definitely had someone watching over his shoulder the whole time, didn't he?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I can't think of what he's made recently. What has he done in the last 10 years?
Recently, he done a remake of the Toolbox Murders, which was it was pretty forgettable, really. Nothing apart from Angela Bettis, who pops up in quite a few little horror films that really stood out, to be honest. One or two good gore scenes. Chevy Moon pops up, but no, pretty average. And, you know, a few years before that, he was making Crocodile, which is probably made straight for cable. But this is the guy that, you know, gave us. Well, he done Monkey Shines, Life Force, and I love Life Force. Life Force is a personal favourite. Texas Chainsaw, Death Trap, you know, he's made some good films, but what's happened to him?
The sad thing about him as well is he never made that impact that will. I mean, Wes Craven will always go down as a horror great. No matter what your personal opinion, he will always be on that list. Carpenter will always be on that list. Romero will always be on that list. You know, rightly or wrongly, Kubrick will be on that list. The reason I say rightly or wrongly is a lot of people don't judge many of his movies as horror. I think all of his movies are horror.
Yeah.
I think it's the horror of society in his movies. One of my most favourite films is Clockwork Orange, and I remember when it was re-released, I think it was 99 when it was eventually, I think it was the same year Exorcist was allowed to come out in the cinema in this country. And I remember a lot of people were reappraising it and reviewing it, and they weren't reviewing it as well as they did 30 years earlier, 20 years earlier, whatever it was. And I was shocked. Because I mean, last time I watched it was about 4 weeks ago, and every single scene in that movie I just think is brilliant. I just think that movie. The funny thing is, and the most dated thing about it is possibly some of the sound effects and music, but they have such an eerie quality that you can argue they're not dated. You can argue that they just they do. They help with the atmosphere of the movie, and I think that he will be in my opinion, he should be in that list of horror greats, because there's a lot of films he's done are just horrific, you know.
Yeah. One particular film that got a hard time is his last one, Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman,
Yeah, and that's a cracking little film, and that's got a real dark feel to it that not many other films have got. When it came out, it got absolutely chastised, but funnily enough, now it's looked back at as a bit of a classic, final send off. But yeah, Kubrick has, like you said, rightly earns his place, doesn't he, on that list?
Oh, I definitely think so. It would be a strange list. I think there would be inclusions on there that I wouldn't agree with. Wes Craven, as I said, is one of them already. But going back to Carpenter, you could never feel angry with him being on that list. I mean, I would possibly put him as my number one, only because of how many personal favourites I have from his output.
Yeah,
you know, he's just. I personally say that films like The Fog, Halloween, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, Prince of Darkness, probably all in my top 10, 20 movies of all time. Probably all of them.
Yeah.
It's hard to sort of rate someone anything other than number one when that's the case. You know?
It is.
I mean, a few directors in total. I mean, Scorsese, I'd probably rate him in the top 10. And I don't know, perhaps my number one of all time would be Takeshi Kitano, Beat Takeshi. You know, I think that he would definitely be in there, Carpenter. And
Yeah, he would.
And perhaps push him for number one spot of all time favourite directors. You know?
Where you stand on Argento, by the way?
Where do I stand on him? I'm nowhere near the level you do. Nowhere near your level. I mean, you know, pure reverence with you, isn't it? But
well, only particular films that I know that well. There's a lot of his work that I need to go back and have a look at.
Because I did watch. What's the one I watched the other day? I can't think the name of it. Oh, I can't think the name of it. The scene I remember is like a tiled room, like a shower or something. And he goes in and kills a woman. Oh, whatever it was. I think the issue I have with him is that is consistency.
Yeah.
But consistency throughout his movies.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the main issue I have with him. But the sort of inspiration he's had, and you know, what he's done for the industry. I think he raised the bar. I think that's the key thing with him. He did things differently. You know, Wes Craven, I don't think did anything different enough. I don't think introduced anything different enough.
No, I don't think.
I think Argento did. He created things that weren't there before. You know, he did things that hadn't been done, and that's where I think that he deserves that place on the list because of that.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever watched Suspiria?
Yeah. Oh, see, that's one movie I can watch from beginning to end and enjoy. Oh, they were supposed to be remaking it, weren't they? Natalie Portman.
Yeah. I've got to say, if it goes ahead, there's not many things that would be encouraging to me knowing that there's a remake of Suspiria coming out, because I don't think it can be touched. But after watching Black Swan, Natalie Portman, yeah, I'll give it a try.
I think the thing with Black Swan that really got me is that I can honestly, genuinely say I've, perhaps with the exception of Closer, I've not appreciated any of her performances. And in fact, I think my first, apart from Leon, obviously, but she was a child when she made that. You kind of give a bit of exception. My first, when she was that teenager coming into adulthood, Phantom Menace. And coming as a Star Wars fan since birth, practically, she sort of is one of those people that spoiled it for me, you know. So, you know, I was like fucking Tim from Spaced, burning my Darth Vader mask, you know. So, and then she made some shit, but seeing Black Swan, wow. What a movie, but what a performance! What a performance!
Yeah, definitely. She's got exactly what it needs to. Although, you know, one character's not going to make a Suspiria remake. There's so many elements that Argento puts into his films, and you're right. They're a confusing mess. A lot of them. They're incoherent. Most Italian directors from that period struggled with the same problems, didn't they?
Well, there's a lot of. I remember watching something that was. It was to do with a lot of political things going on, weren't there? There's a lot of issues with, I think earlier on, in 50s and 60s, I think I read somewhere, because a lot of it transferred to then to France and things like that. But I think politically, I think there's a lot of interference, and I think that, I mean, as Clive Barker's Nightbreed will show, studio interference can really make a majestic, beautiful movie seem a little bit coherent, seem a little bit, you know. And I think that's, like you say, a lot of those Italian directors, they battled with that, didn't they? They battled with finding a consistent tone throughout a movie.
Yeah, definitely. Lucio Fulci, Argento, you know, even maybe lesser Bava, although Bava was around before we were even cracked out of our shells, wasn't it?
Fucking Argento was, you cheeky bastard.
Actually, yeah. Actually, he come before us as well, didn't he? Not quite as early as Barber though.
But I mean, just looking back at the thing, I think we just need to sort of recap a little bit about our feelings about that film.
Yeah.
You know, I think that before people get annoyed with our voices and...
Yeah. Oh, they'll be annoyed with my...
Yeah, it might have been half an hour ago, actually.
Yeah,
I think we've lost them already, haven't we? You know, but,
flatline.
But I think that... I mean, I'll ask you that question again. The legacy of it.
You bastard.
See, I am consistent.
The legacy, yeah.
Right. I want my question. I'm like, honestly, like from the SS or something. You will talk.
Right, alright, you're like Christoph Waltz. So I better give you an answer quick.
I want that answer now.
The legacy. I think, well, for me, it is the 80s. If I think of the 80s and I think comedy, I'll think Steve Martin. If I think 80s and I think horror, I'll think John Carpenter. And if I think the 80s and I think the coolest guy on earth, then I think Kurt Russell. So all of those together in the mix is pretty special, and I think that's the legacy it's left. Is that for a start, you know, it took them 30 years to do a prequel, and it's a so-so companion piece. But you wouldn't want to watch it really as a companion piece because it just gets showed up. But it took them 30 years, and I think
speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I think there's less of a legacy if you've got something just getting ripped left, right and centre, like a year afterwards everyone's feeding off of it like vultures, but they've left his work alone, or largely. I mean, obviously they've remade a lot of Carpenter films in recent years, but The Thing, it withheld a good 30 years, and I think that's its legacy. It's just that it was untouchable, and for that time in history there was nothing doing what it did. Nothing with a group of characters that, you know, you could hear them thinking, who do I trust?
Yeah.
Is it him? Is it?
Oh, every expression on their face. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty cracking set of character actors anyway, wasn't it? I mean, you got people like Richard Masur, I'm a massive fan of anyway. Keith David, another Carpenter favourite. We need to give him a little mention, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, just a quick mention of They Live as well.
Oh.
The best fight scene ever.
Oh.
The longest fight scene ever. With Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Have you ever read into that scene? Because it's long, wasn't it? It's really long.
Funny enough, I haven't, but it is unbelievably long, isn't it? The great thing about it was it doesn't get boring.
It doesn't.
It does seem a bit sort of a farce, but it is good though.
God,
I don't forget They Live from his 80s output.
I know, and do you know what?
That's the thing, you forget, don't you?
You do, but
Christine.
You think They Live, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking Meg Foster and those piercing fucking eyes.
And then you think of Masters of the Universe as Evil Lynn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And Dolph. And then we're back to Drago.
I'm never new to you.
6 degrees of separation, man.
And do you know what? And that brings me on to one of my most favourite recent horror films, The Ninth Gate, because Frank Langella was Skeletor, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he's, of course, Boris Balkan.
Yeah.
The Ninth Gate.
Yeah,
that's for another time.
It is.
That's for another time.
We'll open that one up.
We'll open that up another time.
We'll crack that shell.
We'll get away. In fact, Johnny Depp and horror movies is perhaps something that you know, he's not made many, but there's certainly a legacy there, isn't there?
There is.
For me.
Well, ever since that little fresh boy. Oh, fresh boy.
You're getting into your personal pleasures now, aren't you?
That fresh.
Save that till the camera's off. That fresh boy.
Oh, a nice fresh
Where's
meat.
The Werthers?
Oh, where's the Werthers? Put one in me, one.
Nonce nuggets.
Yeah, good old Johnny Depp. Yeah, he didn't last too long in Elm Street. You know.
No. Did you know he did? That was I don't know what. I read somewhere he did his own stunt. I don't know how much of a stunt it really was, getting sucked into a bed. But
yeah, I'll go down there.
Credit where credit due. He did his own stunt.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
I think there's possible spine damage that could occur if there was not.
Mattresses are well known for damaging the spine, aren't they?
Yeah. It depends if it was an orthopaedic mattress.
That's a good point. Yeah, we can't. Yeah, must make merit of that. Eh? But on that note,
yes, good time wrap up.
I think that your phone is telling us to shut the fuck up as well.
Yeah, what's my phone doing?
Thanks for joining us. Our first podcast. We will try and tighten up the rambling at some point.
Yeah, not too much though.
We can't make any promises because you are lucky that we've managed to finish in the time we have. This is quite a forced close to our discussion as well, to be honest. I think that only because our stomachs are rumbling and Quill's phone is doing something in his pocket. I think he's got it on vibrate for some personal reason. Oh, yeah, I can definitely hear a vibration.
It sits next to my member.
But on that note, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
and
we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon.